the grass. At the time of this video's publication, these are the last two known northern white rhinos left on Earth. Their species is functionally extinct. Without a male, Nayin and Fatu can't reproduce. And yet, there's still hope to revive the northern white rhino. How can that be? The story starts about 50 years ago, when poachers began illegally hunting thousands of rhinos across Africa for their horns. This, combined with civil wars in their territory, decimated northern white rhino populations. Concerned conservationists began trying to breed them in captivity in the 1970s, collecting and storing semen from males. Only 4 rhinos were ultimately born through the ambitious breeding program. Nayin and her daughter Fatu were the last 2. In 2014, conservationists discovered that neither can have a calf. Though Nayin gave birth to Fatu, she now has weak hind legs, which could harm her health if she became pregnant again. Fatu, meanwhile, has a degenerated uterine lining. Then, the last northern white rhino male of the species, Sudan, died in 2018. But there was one glimmer of hope: artificial reproduction. With no living males and no females able to carry a pregnancy, this is a complicated and risky process to say the least. Though scientists had stored semen, they would have to collect the eggs, a complex procedure that requires a female to be sedated for up to 2 hours. Then, they'd create a viable embryo in the lab, something that had never been done before, and no one knew how to do. Even that was just the beginning. A surrogate mother of another rhino species would have to carry the embryo to term. Females of a closely related species, the southern white rhino, became both the key to developing a rhino embryo in a lab and the leading candidates for surrogate mothers. Northern and southern white rhinos diverged about 1 million years ago into separate, though still closely related, species. They inhabit different regions and have slightly different physical traits. In a fortunate coincidence, several female southern white rhinos needed treatment for their own reproductive problems, and researchers could collect eggs as part of that treatment. In Dvor Králové Zoo, in October 2015, experts of IZW Berlin began collecting eggs from southern white rhinos and sending them to Avantea, an animal reproduction laboratory in Italy. There, scientists developed and perfected a technique to create a viable embryo. Once they mastered the technique, researchers extracted Nayin and Fatu's eggs on August 22, 2019, and flew them to Italy. 3 days later, they fertilized the eggs with sperm from a northern white rhino male. After another week, 2 of the eggs made it to the stage of development when the embryo can be frozen and preserved for the future. Another collection in December 2019 produced 1 more embryo. As of early 2020, the plan is to collect Nayin and Fatu's eggs 3 times a year if they're healthy enough. In the meantime, researchers are looking for promising southern white rhino surrogate mothers, ideally who've carried a pregnancy to term before. The surrogacy plan is somewhat of a leap of faith. Southern and northern white rhinos have interbred both during the last glacial period and more recently in 1977. So researchers are optimistic a southern white rhino would be able to carry a northern white rhino to term. Also, the 2 species' pregnancies are the same length. Still, transferring an embryo to a rhino is tricky because of the shape of the cervix. The ultimate goal, which will take decades, is to establish a breeding population of northern white rhinos in their original range. Studies suggest that we have samples from enough individuals to recreate a population with the genetic diversity the species had a century ago. Though the specifics of this effort are unique, as more species face critical endangerment or functional extinction, it's also an arena for big questions. Do we have a responsibility to try to bring species back from the brink, especially when human actions brought them there in the first place? Are there limits to the effort we should expend on saving animals threatened with extinction? How are conservationists and communities helping endangered species recover? See how some
Okay,
regions are working to repopulate
so that's
vulture
all about
communities by opening.
that video. That means we have some little bit hope so that we can recover the extinct species if any relevant species should be there. Okay, and that fully depend upon the human activities. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Now we have previously completed few part of classification, and today we will start our new part of the classification. Look at here, and we have got the concept regarding to the diversity, evolution, classification, characteristic, etc. Isn't it? Okay, so get ready to see that how.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, very good evening. So look at here. These are the scientists. They have put forwarded their thought regarding to the classification of living organism. Ernst Haeckel, Robert Whittaker, Carl Oates. These were the famous personalities. They have worked regarding to the classification of living organism. Okay. Now look at here. Carolus Linnaeus was the first scientist. He worked under classification sector. And again you have to remember Carolus Linnaeus has also put forwarded his work under nomenclature of a living organism. Means he has worked how to give name to such living organism. Okay, again look at here. Hence, Carolus Linnaeus is called as the father of classification as well as the father of nomenclature, as these both branches are deal with taxonomy. Hence, we can say Carolus Linnaeus as the father of taxonomy. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Now look at here. Carolus Linnaeus has classified all the living organisms into two groups. First time in the scientific way. Those are Plantae and Animalia. The Plantae group consists all the plants found on earth, whereas the Animalia kingdom consists all the animals found on earth. But before Carolus Linnaeus, Aristotle has classified all the organisms into three main groups on the basis of their habitat. Those were the aquatic organism, the terrestrial organism, and the avians, those who live in air. But that was not scientific. But first timely, Carolus Linnaeus has classified the organism into two broad groups scientifically. Okay, now look at here. They, after Carolus Linnaeus, one famous scientist Ernst Haeckel came and he proposed three kingdom system of classification. And according to him, all the microorganisms should be placed under Protista kingdom. Plantae and Animalia kingdom was previously suggested by our Carolus Linnaeus, but then Ernst Haeckel suggested another broad kingdom along with these two previously remaining kingdom. That new kingdom was a Protista and it contains all the unicellular living organisms. Then after, these unicellular organisms are majorly eukaryotic in nature and unicellular in nature also. Okay, now look at here. Then after Kaplan, another scientist came and he classified few organisms from that Protista group and kept them under Monera kingdom. So our Monera kingdom contains all the prokaryotic unicellular organism, whereas your Protista contains all the eukaryotic It means truly developed nucleic acid content cells means organism, as well as they are what unicellular. Unicellular means their whole body is made up of only single cell and the nucleus is well developed. Okay, and that system of classification has proposed by Copeland according to him. So you can say Copeland has proposed 4 kingdom system of classification. Then the widely accepted, the most broadly accepted system of classification was proposed by Robert Whitaker, and this system of classification is called as 5 kingdom system of classification. And he found that some organisms are present in living being. They are multicellular in nature, eukaryotic in nature, and some organisms they are also prokaryotic in nature. Sorry, they are unicellular in nature. But these multicellular and unicellular organisms, they can behave like the microorganisms. Those are unicellular, they behave like the microorganism, and those who are multicellular, they behave like the macroorganism. Their body shape somehow resemblance to the plants, but all the plants are autotrophic in nature, but these organisms are not autotrophic in nature. Means they have to depend upon some other organism for their food purpose. And Robert Whitaker has extracted such organisms from all these kingdoms and kept them under mycota, or you can say it as fungus. Okay, and according to your NCERT, these 5 kingdom system of classification was there. But recently, if you'll see, another scientist known as Carlos, you can see here, he is known as Carl Oz, one American scientist. Okay, he proposed the 6 kingdom system of classification. He is known as your Carl Oz. You can take the screenshot during the course of time, and he proposed 6 kingdom system of classification. And according to him, these 6 kingdom system of classification are Animalia, that contains all the animals. Second, Plantae, that contains all the plants. Third, Mycota or fungi, that contains all fungus. Fourth, Protista, that contains all the, wait for a few minutes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very good afternoon. Look at here. Then Protista, it contains all the unicellular eukaryotic organism, and rest was your Monera. And Carlos has classified the Monera kingdom into 2 broad groups. Generally, when you will see towards the Monera kingdom contains your what? If you will see, look at here. This Monera kingdoms contains prokaryotic unicellular organism. Generally, these all are the bacteria. Remember, Monera kingdom contains all bacteria. But Carlos has seen few bacteria, they are not like true bacteria. They can survive in extreme condition. They are not like the true bacteria and they can survive in extreme condition. Okay, and if you will see the structure of cell wall among all the bacteria, you can easily categorize the extremely survivable bacteria into another group, because the bacterial cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan, but the bacteria which are found in extreme condition, their cell wall is made up of pseudopeptidoglycan. Is it clear to everyone? Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Look at here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Look at here. What I said, this is these 2 groups that we are seeing, these 2 broad kingdom that we are seeing, they have divided from Monera kingdom, and all the bacteria were there. But Carl also said that some bacteria they can live in extreme condition, means at the volcanic eruption site at very high land condition, means salt condition they can live, and their cell wall is made up of pseudopeptidoglycan, and he categorized them under archaebacteria. Okay, but the truly bacteria, their cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan, they are now under
Sir,
your
spelling.
eubacteria. Eu means true, you know. Prokaryotic and eukaryotic we have learned that eu means, eu is the Greek term that means true. So eubacteria kingdom contains all the true bacteria. Okay, means their cell wall must be made up of peptidoglycan. But here the cell wall of these archaebacteria are made up of pseudopeptidoglycan. They can survive in extreme condition. Is it clear to everyone? And this one is the most
Yes, sir.
latest system of classification, that is six kingdom system of classification, and it is also now widely accepted by all the scientists. So now look at here, you can see that
which is still used today. These kingdoms were formed on the basis of cell structure.
what are the basis of this system of classification. Okay, now return to your NCERT book. We have to focus upon only the five kingdom system of classification by considering all the bacteria under Monera kingdom. So how can we classify all these things? On which basis? Let us look at here. The very first basis is your cell structure, whether they are eukaryotic or they are prokaryotic in nature. Okay.
Mode. Source of nutrition.
Second one is their mode of nutrition as well as source of nutrition, means whether they are autotrophic or heterotrophic in nature. If they are heterotrophic, then whether they are engulfing their food directly, means that we all human beings we can engulf the food directly by eating, by ingestion. This method is called as ingestion method of intaking food. Okay, but few organisms are there like your fungus, they have to first release the digestive enzyme or degradative enzyme upon the dead organisms. Then when dead organisms will be simplified outside from their body, then only they can absorb the simple food from them or simple nutrient from them. So this type of saprotrophic mode of nutrition is called as absorptive mode of nutrition. But in case of us, we all are the heterotrophic organism, all the animals, we all are heterotrophic organisms, and we are depending upon the autotrophs and we have to eat them. That means we have to ingest the food from them, and our mode of nutrition is called as holozoic mode of nutrition. Remember, HOLOZOIC. Our mode of nutrition is called as holozoic mode of nutrition, whereas the fungal groups, their mode of nutrition is known as absorptive mode of nutrition. Remember the difference between these two heterotrophs. Animalia kingdom, if you will see here, this Animalia kingdom, they are heterotrophs in nature, and the fungus group, that means Mycota group, they are also heterotrophic in nature, but animals can ingest the food, hence they are called as holozoic in nature. Their mode of nutrition is holozoic. But Mycota, they are heterotrophic, but they have to first of all simplify the food by keeping outside from their body, and such type of mode of absorption of food material is called as absorptive mode of nutrition. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Now look at here. So these are the bases. One is their cell structure, then their source of nutrition and mode of nutrition. Okay, is it clear to everyone?
and body organization.
Look at here. And okay, listen, another basis is their body organization, means whether they are unicellular or multicellular. There, if you will consider their cell structure, you can classify them whether they are eukaryotes or prokaryotes. When you will consider their body organization, you can categorize them whether they are unicellular or multicellular, whether they are simple in their body organization, whether they are complex in their body organization. When you will categorize when you will consider the basis of mode and source of nutrition, you can say whether they are autotrophic or heterotrophic. Again, whether they are heterotrophic, then how they are obtaining their nutrients, whether they are obtaining their nutrient by holozoic method or by absorptive method. So these are different bases on which you can categorize all the organisms into different kingdoms. Okay, remember, these are the three main bases of five kingdom system of classification. Now let us look at here.
Organisms can also be classified on the basis of their hierarchy.
Look at here. These were the three main fundamental bases. Again, if you will see their system of arrangement, their label of body characteristic, their rank, we can classify all the organisms on the basis of such hierarchy, means in systematic order manner, from which group they have evolved. Okay,
breaks into phylum.
we can see that this broad kingdom, which is the basis of classification, can be divided into number of phylum. Wait for a few minutes. Now look at here. If you want to understand properly the hierarchy of classification, you have to look towards the picture. It will provide you the better understanding. Okay, with the example. Listen. Is it visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You can see
Yes, sir.
these are the 7 labels or 7 ranks through which our system of classification can occur on the basis of hierarchy. Or you can say this one is a hierarchical system of classification, means in certain pattern we can classify the organisms from which they have evolved. Okay, and these 7 you can see this is the kingdom is the major group from which all the rest groups has classified. They are the subgroups of this kingdom. When you are going to classify the animals, you can categorize the kingdom into two main subgroup. One will be the phylum, another will be the division. The phylum subgroup is meant for animals and the division subgroup is meant for plants. Remember, the phylum,
Yes, sir.
wait, your kingdom is divided into two types. All of you mute yourself. Your kingdom is divided into, one is your phylum and another will be your division. There is no space to manage it. Or wait. And look at here. Phylum is meant for the subgroup of Animalia kingdom, whereas the division is meant for the subgroup of your plant kingdom. Okay, that I have said. There are 5 kingdom system of classification, but recently we have seen these are nowadays you have 6 kingdom system of classification. Only Monera kingdom has classified into 2 groups, and we will learn these all things later on. But now consider only 5 kingdom, and here we are discussing about the 2 kingdom. One is Animalia kingdom and one other one is the Plante kingdom. So when you will read about the animal, you have to consider phylum as the subgroup of the Animalia kingdom. When we are going to read about the plants, you have to consider division as the subgroup of the Plante kingdom. Now look at here. Then phylum subgroup can again be classified into number of classes. Similarly, divisions will also be categorized into number of classes, and each class will further divided into number of orders, and each order can be further divided into number of groups, and each group will be called as family, and each family can be subdivided into number of groups. Each group will be called as genus, and in each genus when we will and out of all the genus, if you see one genus, that one genus group can further be divided into number of species, and similar thing can also occurs in case of the plants division. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Look at here. Species is the basic group for all the higher groups. Why? Because all the animals found in species, they have the capacity to interbreed themselves. Okay, same kind of species, all the animals present under one certain group, that is the species, they can interbreed among themselves. Hence, species is considered as the basic group for this hierarchical system of classification, the systematic system of classification, or in a definite order of classification. For example, when we will take the Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens will stand for human being. This one is the biological name of human being. Look at here. From this discussion, you can also get the idea regarding to the nomenclature process. Okay, how nomenclature initiates. You can get some fundamental idea regarding to that. We'll learn later on in different sector regarding to biological nomenclature. But now look at here. The scientific name of human being is Homo sapiens. You can say also the biological name of human being is Homo sapiens. So these are the members of genus Homo. Their genus will be Homo and the species name will be Sapiens. Okay, and what is will be the unique characteristic for them? They have a height forehead and thin skull bones. Okay, like other animals. Now look at here. If you'll see about the genus Homo, what is the speciality of this genus Homo? They are the they Homo genus is one group of hominid family. Remember, Homo genus is one group of hominid family. Okay, and what is the characteristic of this homogeneous that they are upright with posture and they have the large brains. Next, look towards the hominid family. It is the one out of different order. Hominid is one family from primate order. Okay, and what will the special character for hominid family? They have relatively flat faces and three-dimensional vision. They can see three-dimensional substances, 3D substances. Okay, in 3D way they can see. Now look towards the order primates. This primate is one special order out of other orders of class mammals. And what is the special feature of this primate? They have collar bones and grasping fingers. This one is the specialty for primate order out of all the orders of mammals group. When we will come to the mammal group as a class, what?
Collarbone.
Collarbone is present at your neck, below the neck, in its shoulder. Okay, front side of your shoulder, you can feel that two bone is present. Okay, they are going to meet the meet the neck. This is the collarbone where your shirt's collar is present. That bone is called as your collarbone. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now look at here. Mammals group is one class out of different classes of chordate phylum. And what is the special feature of these mammals? They have milk glands. They have their body contains fur or hair. Understood? This is the unique characteristic of mammals group as a class out of different classes of chordates. If you will see towards the chordate as one phylum, out of 35 phylum, look at here, the animal kingdoms are classified into 35 phylum, but in your syllabus you will learn nearly 10 to 12 phylum. Okay, so out of this 35 phylum, one phylum is the chordate that contains animals with backbone, means their vertebral column. Is it clear to everyone? And chordate
Yes,
is one of the group out of this 35 phylum that remains under Animalia kingdom, and Animalia kingdom contains all the animals, and they have which characteristics? They can move from one place to another place on according to their own. They are heterotrophic in nature. These all are the characteristics we are going to learn later on. Now look at here. So now look at here. The kingdom animals or Animalia contains varieties of animals. When you will move towards certain phylum, you will get the idea regarding to certain
Sir, your
phylum.
voice is not audible.
Due to the network problem, probably come to the network zone to get the better results. Okay.
Sorry, your voice is not audible.
Okay, try to come to the network zone so that you will get better experience. Is it visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Very good. Now look
Yes,
at here.
sir.
Here you can see the Animalia kingdom contains different animals, and when you will subdivided them into different groups, each group will be called as phylum.
For
Now look at here.
animals, or division for plants,
Look at here. The Plantae kingdom, when they will be subdivided, each group of Plantae kingdom will be called as what? Who can say? The subdivision of Plantae kingdom. Yes, yes, it's called as the division. The subgroup of
Division.
Plantae kingdom is called as division, but the subgroup of Animalia kingdom is called as phylum. Remember.
Phylum.
class, order, family, genus, and species. Hence, the basic unit of classification is species.
That it is saying species is the basic unit of classification, means in which all the animals present under species group they can interbreed themselves. That means there is a chance of interbreeding themselves. Okay.
A species includes all organisms that are similar enough to breed and produce fertile offspring.
Understood or not? Species group contains such animals those who can interbreed themselves and can produce the fertile offspring, means the child which they will produce they can again capable of producing their own child. Okay. Now look at here.
Another important landmark in the history of classification of living organisms was the development of the system of scientific naming or nomenclature.
Now we have to move towards the nomenclature process, and here you can see that Carolus Linnaeus was the father of binomial nomenclature system, because he has put forwarded their first work how to give the newly discovered or the presently categorized animals with certain name. How can we able to know about that name, to distinguish them, to identify them? Okay, you can see here these are the examples of animals you can see, and they have their respective name. Tigers scientific name is Panthera tigris. Panthera is the genus name, tigris is the species name. And look what here, each biological name or scientific name should contain two epithet. One is genus epithet. Epithet means name, like you have your first name and last name. Like this the animal have genus epithet as well as species epithet. And the first name of this tiger is Panthera, and the last name of this tiger is Tigris. You can say the genus name of this tiger is Panthera and the species name of this tiger is Panthera tigris. So the biological name of this tiger will be Panthera tigris. And if you look towards the biological name of human being, it will be Homo sapiens. The biological name of lion will be Panthera leo. The biological name of rat will be Rattus rattus. The biological name of peacock is Pavo cristatus. The biological name of this frog is Rana tigrina. Understood? So now let us see how we can able to give the name to certain organism. Look at here. Suppose here this one is the human being, and as I said human being has two name, one is genus, another one is species. Look at here, the genus name for human being is Homo, that we have already discussed in that picture, and the species name of this human being will be Sapiens. We have to write these two names separately by keeping the genus name in capital form, and species name you have to start the species name with small letter. Okay. And you have to maintain the space in between these two names. Now look at here, when you are going to print the biological name, you have to print the biological or scientific name in italic form by keeping same thing in your mind, that the genus name should be started with capital letter, but the species name always should remain in small letter. Okay. And when you are going to handwriting this name, you have to write it by underlining the two names separately. Similarly, you have to keep the genus name as capital. You have to initiate the genus name with capital letter, and all the letter of the species should remain in small form. Okay. Now let us look towards the five kingdom system of classification. that we have read. These are the Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. You can see here the Monera group, it contains all the unicellular prokaryotic organisms, especially your bacteria. Then your Protista group, all the protists are made up of, or their unique characteristic is they are unicellular eukaryotes, and from them your fungi, plantae and animalia has evolved. Your fungi group contains all the eukaryotic multicellular saprotrophic organism. That means their mode of nutrition is the absorptive. They absorb the food. Then when you look towards the plantae kingdom, all the plantae kingdom contains, all the plants are remaining under plantae kingdom, and they are multicellular, eukaryotic, and they are autotrophic in nature. When you look towards the animalia kingdom, they contains, this kingdom contains all the animals inside it. They are also multicellular, eukaryotic, but they are heterotrophic in nature. And fungus and animalia, they are heterotrophic in nature, but fungus are absorptive in nature, means they can absorb their nutrient, but animals, they have to eat their nutrient, they have to ingest their nutrient, they have to engulf their nutrient. Okay, hence this mode of nutrition is called as holozoic mode of nutrition. So in this way you can make the characteristic feature to the animal as they are holozoic in nature. Is it clear to everyone? Is it clear
Yes,
to
sir.
everyone?
Yes, sir.
Now let us discuss more detailedly about the Monera kingdom. Your Monera kingdom contains all the prokaryotic unicellular organism, but these all prokaryotes are not same. That Carl Woese has came and classified this Monera kingdom into two subkingdoms. One is Eubacteria, another one is the Archaebacteria. That again I am repeating. If you will see the cell wall structure, on the basis of their cellular structure, the Carl Woese classified the organism into two groups. One is Eubacteria, that means those cell wall is truly made up of peptidoglycan. He categorized all the bacteria under that. Okay, and then the bacteria which cell wall is made up of pseudopeptidoglycan, he categorized them under the Archaebacteria group. That means these, due to the presence of this pseudopeptidoglycan in their cell wall, they can live under extreme condition. Okay, means at the volcanic eruption site, at the saline water condition, in extreme cold region, they are available. But one mistake, Robert Whitaker has proposed this 5 kingdom system classification now. So Robert Whitaker has by mistakenly placed the cyanobacteria, blue-green algae under Monera kingdom, which are autotrophic in nature. Later on, that blue-green algae has classified and transported under the Plantae kingdom. Okay, remember these all things. These are the cyanobacter blue-green algae. Okay, he has classified them under. Later on, that blue-green algae classified under what and placed under the
Plant.
algae uh, group of your plants division. Okay, these are the mycoplasma. Very small mycoplasma are the smallest living organism. They are also unicellular in nature. They are also prokaryotic in nature, because all the Monera kingdom contains prokaryotic unicellular organism. That's all about your Monera kingdom. Okay, but these the cyanobacteria, they are autotrophic in nature. Okay, and algae, blue green algae also, they are autotrophic in nature. So later on, this group of organisms has kept under what, the Plantae kingdom. Okay. And another, how they are nutriting, how they are getting nutrition? By heterotrophic mode of nutrition, they are getting their nutrient. Now let us move towards the Protista, and under Protista you can see these are unicellular, but they are eukaryotic in nature. That means their nucleus is truly developed, and under here we can see such type of animals are present. The examples of Protista are, you can see,
Diatoms, Protista, or algae.
look at here, and also some group of algae has been placed under Protista group by Robert Whitaker. Later on it has been transported into the Plantae kingdom. Okay,
Diatoms
these are the diatoms, and some,
and protozoans.
these are the protozoans. Okay,
Protists include plants and animals.
you can see here that the algae are belonging to the plants, where the diatoms and protozoans, they are belongs to the animal group. Okay. So protist has included these all animals. Later on it has some of the animals are transported into the what, the Plantae and animal kingdom respectively.
Their mode of nutrition can be autotrophic or heterotrophic.
And look at here, some of the protists, they can make their own food by autotrophic mode of nutrition, and some of the protists, they can make their own food by heterotrophic mode of nutrition.
They are
Okay.
unicellular and the simplest form of eukaryotes.
Because they are unicellular, hence they are the simplest form of eukaryote.
Some protists move with whip-like flagella,
Yes,
hair-like cilia, or finger-like pseudopodia.
these are the moving parts of their body, movable parts of their body. What are these? Pseudopodia, cilia, and flagella. Okay. Now let us
The
move towards
next
the
kingdom,
fungi.
fungi, includes
can see.
mushrooms,
Your
rhizopus,
voice is
These are
not
the,
coming clearly.
okay, try to listen. Look at here. Here you can see, wait for a minute. Let me take the screenshot.
Not audible.
I think it will.
Voice is not clearly audible.
Listen, all of you. We are going to suffer we are going to face the internet problem. If it will possible, I will keep this video under in the YouTube. Okay. So try to see this. Now all of you, it will better to leave the group. I have to finish the 5 kingdom system of classification. It will better to see the video from YouTube, and you can ask the doubts from there. Okay.
Sir.
Okay. Now look at here.
and mucor.
Here you can see.
The next kingdom, you may have noticed moss on walls.
So you can see here that
And mucor. These organisms are not plants and are not capable of performing photosynthesis.
Wait for a few minutes.
Most fungi are multicellular and eukaryotic.
You can
They
see
have
here
cell
that,
walls made of a tough, complex
look at here. All the multicellular as well as unicellular fungus are present under this fungi group. And one unique characteristic or common characteristic is here that their cell wall is made up of one complex sugar known as chitin.
sugar called chitin.
You can see here CHITIN. You can see this one is the complex sugar which is the main composition for their cell wall. Okay.
Fungi decay dead plants and animals to derive their food.
You can see here also that they can release the digestive enzyme upon the dead and decaying organism. That digestive enzyme, when will degrade the complex substance, they will convert into simple food material. So all these process of conversion of complex nutrient occurs from outside of their body, and they absorb the simplest converted food from their outside of their body. Hence this mode of absorption is called as absorptive mode of nutrition. Now we got that. Okay, now look at here. Hence they are also called as saprophytes because they are depending upon dead and decaying organism. And sometimes we can see that the fungus along with the algae are living together, okay, in a symbiotic association. Here you can see some fungi, here you can see at the middle the fungi is there, and some algae, they are also living together upon the branches of tree or upon the large part of the tree, generally at the trunk part of the tree, and in a symbiotic mode of nutrition that helps in sharing of nutrient among themselves as well as shelter for themselves. And this condition, fungus provides shelter to the algal partner and algal partner provides nutrient to the fungus. And this mode of nutrition is called as symbiotic mode of nutrition. That means fungus can gain the nutrient from saprophytic or absorptive mode of nutrition. Again, it can also get nutrient by symbiotic mode of nutrition. And that combined structure is called as the lichen, in which you can see both fungus and algae are present. Okay, and their living pattern is called as symbiosis. This relationship is called as symbiosis. Now look towards the another kingdom known as your plantae. This plantae kingdom includes all the non-motile autotrophic green plants. Okay, that means they cannot move from one place to another place, hence they are called as autotrophic. Another feature will be they are multicellular and eukaryotic in nature. Okay, another feature in the cellular level is that their cell wall is made up of cellulose, that you are very familiar with that. Next, our point of discussion is Animalia kingdom, and Animalia kingdom is the largest of all the kingdoms classified by the R.H. Whitaker, because here we can see a large diversity among species. Various kinds of species are there. Now let us look towards their unique feature. What will be it? It includes all the animals that are motile and heterotrophic. That means they can move from one place to another place and they have to depend upon other green plants or animals for their nutrient for food. They are also multicellular and but they do not have cell wall around their cell. They are eukaryotic in nature because their nucleus is truly developed. So that's all about the different types of living organisms has classified into five kingdom system of classification. But Carlos has proposed the advanced system of classification that you know very well. It is the six kingdom system of classification. So that's all about your today's class. Stay connected. Have a nice day. God bless you all.